Okay, this is a tutorial on paragraphing. Let's start with some basic rules of thumb. In general, there are very few exceptionalist rules that you must always follow, but there are some good rules of thumb that generally make for good accessible writing. And rule number 1 for paragraphing is no long walls of text. As a general rule, a paragraph should be like a half a page long at the most, and it's not really the length itself that matters, although perhaps you can identify as a reader when something's really long, it's easier for your mind to wander and it's hard to sort of hold everything in your mind at once. When things are broken up, it's sort of a chance to recap and connect each part. But then the other reason is that, as a general rule, a paragraph should have a specific single point, a specific single function within your paper. Now, if you've written a wall of text and you're reflecting on it, you can probably convince yourself that it's all on a single topic. Everything is related in some way. So there are more general or abstract or broad topics and more focused or narrow ones. So if you've got a wall of text, ask yourself, how could you break it up into individual points and how are those related to one another? Rule of thumb number 2, lead with topic sentences. The first sentence, usually the first sentence, occasionally the second one, of the paragraph is the topic. At the very least, it's at the beginning of a paragraph, and then you develop the topic throughout the paragraph. Now, why might it be a second sentence? Because sometimes we use the first sentence to transition from a previous point to a new one, and the topic sentence is the second sentence, or maybe the second clause of the first. Point being, it's up front. In an argumentative paper, your topic sentence is usually a claim, an assertion, a premise, perhaps an objection even. The point is that you're asserting something that you must then develop support for. Before moving on to the next 2 rules of thumb, which we're actually going to focus the majority of this tutorial on, I want to point out resources and look at one actual example of a piece of argumentative writing that uses topic sentences. So let's start with writing resources. If you go to the modules page or if you scroll down on any home page, there's a link to a writing resources page. And this is where I've collected all of my favorite writing resources, and I've included why I picked each one. So that's worth looking at. And if you scroll down to about 11 is where we get to paragraphing. And this first source is just general essential paragraphing skills. So if you feel like you're starting at the beginning and aren't familiar with the jargon of topic sentences and such, this would be a good place to start. Now let's look at an actual example. One way to test if you have used effective topic sentences is to skim through your paper and read just the first sentence and see if it makes sense as a progression of ideas. And then you can go look at the paragraph and see if they develop each of those topic sentences. So let's just read the first sentence or so of each paragraph and see if this longer article makes sense. So let's start with sentence number 1. The clashes between police and protesters in response to the recent police killings of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Tony McDade, and others throughout the country expose the violence inherent to the U.S. system of policing. So there's a claim. The claim is specifically that there is this problem, the problem of violence inherent to the U.S. system of policing. Okay, now, a number of attempts to give political expression to the energy in the streets have emerged in recent days. Some have emphasized the symbolic. Okay, so how are we responding to this problem? Some have emphasized the symbolic. Others have emphasized surgical reforms. But more radical proposals are also circulating. Many now demand that we defund. Another radical call under consideration, abolishing the police. Fulfilling the demands of either of these would surely improve our situation to some degree, but, and then here we have our main claim, sometimes at the end, but this will be helpful to highlight as we look at the rest of the argument. So here's our final main claim. The most promising path forward on the way to a fuller reorganization of society around human needs instead of profit and domination is community control over the police. So a standard introduction where you've got problem, alternative ways of responding to a problem, thesis, main claim, conclusion of this paper. So now in the organization of this paper, we will expect there to be premises, major claims that support this conclusion, and potential objections that are considered and evaluated. And so let's look at how this author uses topic sentences, and those topic sentences are assertions that need to be fully developed within a paragraph. So sentence number 1. The U.S. system of policing evolved to maintain exploitative economic systems and maintain oppressive social hierarchies. That is an assertion. I've just asserted a specific claim, and the rest of the paragraph will develop the support for that claim. Next. Today, the colonial system that subsequently militarized the police and set incarceration running at warp speed, that's the thing that just happened in the previous paragraph. Transition to new paragraph. Point. Is maintained by a dizzying array of wildly perverse incentives. Okay, so the system that we just talked about, the one that developed in order to secure the economic needs of whatever groups of people, that system is maintained by perverse incentives. And the rest of this paragraph develops the incentives that maintain the system that we have. Okay, so thus restatement of the main claim. Communities are going to have to dismantle the prison industrial complex themselves. Now, considering an objection, defunding by itself will make the problem smaller. This is progress, but developing a point. The core problem is developing support for that. So if you go through the rest of this, you'll see how this author, or pick any example of an argumentative essay that you find in an online magazine or in an op-ed or something like that. See how authors develop their arguments using topic sentences. Your best examples, especially if you're looking at an op-ed, are going to come from essentially people who are in some sense professional writers, and that includes pretty much all academics. Not that all academic writing is good writing, a lot of it is not, but you'll have a better chance there. Okay, so as a general rule, noticing writing that's good and trying to sort of be metacognitive, evaluating like, what is it that I'm experiencing and why is this so good? That's a good way to learn to write. Okay, so we've covered the two main ones, at the length, and that paragraph should have topic sentences, and that those topic sentences will generally be claims that need supporting. Next rule of thumb is coherence. Everything in your paragraph should be on the same topic. Everything should connect back to that topic sentence, to the main point or function. And then finally, cohesion. And this is what we're going to spend the rest of this tutorial on. Relationships between sentences are clear. The logical progression of ideas, sentence to sentence, is clear. And then ultimately, paragraph to paragraph or section to section, that those relationships are clear. In other words, imagine a reader who knows how to map. That person could easily map your arguments. They know how the premises connect together, what supports what, and ultimately what's the main claim.